Just like the rest of the 46% of the population, I have a nice shiny 4-year degree, and mine was in general economics. 4 years of economic hogwash jammed into this noggin of mine that I can decently read those freaky dotty line graphs that are cream puffed deep into your average accounting class. But for some nut-itching foreseen reason, I can't get a job because a frat billionaire son took it from my slimy immigrant hands, chopped it up, and spit it out on his dumbass live streams. Oh, but never fear, for I have found a use for this degree besides it being a glorified dust collector. I didn't get into unlubed debt for this thing for no reason, despite me doing it again by going down the graduate path trying to receive an MBA, not an NBA. Just because I'm black doesn't mean I have some so-called hops and sniffs the chalk that LeBron manhandles on a regular basis. Anyways, so I decided to create this series on my channel. Born from my inspiration for MatPat's game theory, I decided to combine my rudimentary economic knowledge with my love for general fiction. Video games, books, comics, anything you can think of have swirled in my brain noodles for years, and I've had lengthy conversations with my boys, my homies, about a variety of these things. So I decided to put these discussions and breakdowns to good use. So today, for my first episode of this series, I thought I would break down a very popular green rock in the DC universe that is so powerful it can bring down one of the most powerful beings in the DC universe. I also thought it would be a good time to do this episode because of the release of the new James Gunn Superman. That's right, today, ladies and gentlemen, today I'm going to break down the real life worth of Kryptonite. Welcome to my new series that I today am calling Fictional Economics. You ever looked at a piece of gold and wondered how much that one piece is worth? Or are you like me and say, who cares as long as it gives me a crap ton of money? My rent is due and I have severe amounts of student loan debt and the good old president ain't gonna help me out. As much as that may be a valid response and I agree with your plight, today I am going to become the weirdo in this scenario. To figure out the worth of something, to me, is somewhat of an interesting prospect. Due to that prospect, my mind wanders to one of my favorite universes, the DC universe. And one character just kept coming to my mind when this question came to me. The golden, super solar-powered Kansas god of the DC universe. One of DC's unstoppable forces, the last son of Krypton, Clark the American Way Kent, aka Superman, is one of the most vibrant heroes for the generations, with the only downside being that this baboon, this monkey, can be taken out by a tiny green rock made from his own planet, Krypton. Given that Kryptonite is a rare resource, almost every millionaire in the DC universe seems to have a decent supply of the thing. Which begs the question, how do Batman, Lex Luthor, Ray Palmer, and every other billionaire in the DC universe have the bandwidth, especially this egomaniac Luthor, to have a decent stockpile of Kryptonite? What, you thought Bruce Contingency Wayne doesn't have more than one measly shard of Kryptonite? And let us not forget, good old Lex Luthor here has an entire armory powered by the damn thing, just to use against Superman. This led me to the question, Kryptonite must have a certain worth in the DC universe, right? So theoretically, what would be the worth of Kryptonite if it were a real life material that we could utilize? For us to start figuring that out, we need to get some things in order. What is needed to know the worth of something? When it comes to finding a material's worth, we have to take some things into account. Weight, purity, scarcity, demand, utility, extraction cost, and lastly, market speculation. For us to start figuring it out, we need a base, a control variable you might say. For this comparison, let's look at a material that is the best friend for every woman and every black rapper with blocks and grills in their teeth: gold. The first aspect we want to look at is the weight, and for us to do that, we need to know what a troy ounce is. A troy ounce is a system of multiple weights that is used to measure the weight of precious metals, gems, and similar materials. A troy ounce is 31.10 grams, and a regular ounce is 28.35 grams. That is about a 10% height compared to a regular gram. Therefore, the conversion for 1 gram to troy ounces is this number here. For shortness sake, I'm just going to say it's 0.032 troy ounces, so we want to compare 0.032 troy ounces of gold to 0.032 troy ounces of kryptonite. So with that, we get a starting point for each material. Next is the purity, utility, and properties. We all already know the properties of gold and its uses, but what about kryptonite? Given that we don't have a super-powered Superman, unless you want to count that behemoth known as Eddie Hall, but unfortunately he isn't solar-powered and can't fire lasers out of his eyes. So we can't use it to defeat a DC god, but we do have an alternate use. We can use it as a power source. In an issue of Superman Volume 2, number 82, Hank Henshaw, aka Cyborg Superman, and Mongol were able to utilize the radiation that emits from kryptonite to power a place known as Engine City. Also, it is theoretically established that kryptonite technically has an atomic number of about 126, which makes it significantly more potent than the element uranium. To put it into perspective, it takes about 50 tons per day to power a city with uranium, which means 1 gram of uranium can power about 727 households. Now imagine that with just a singular gram of kryptonite. My bad, Soups, but you won't be living in my city if I can create all of this power all at once. However, you did notice I said radiation, which brings me to the extraction cost section of this analysis. Just like our egotistical bald friend over here, prolonged exposure to kryptonite without the proper equipment can lead to early on stage space cancer if gone unchecked. Kryptonite is theorized to be measured to emit 75 rems per hour, so of course, the extraction of kryptonite would be an extremely expensive venture. It already cost approximately 1.2k just to extract 1 ounce of gold if you did it on your own. Now imagine the cost it would be just to get 1 singular ounce of kryptonite. Things like hazmat suits, research stations, purity testers, and labor alone would be a nightmare. Excavators, drag lines, shovels, giant trucks, crushers, and grinding mills. All of these things are adding to the already high price of extracting a singular ounce of kryptonite. Comparing it to the extraction cost of 1 singular ounce of gold, the extraction cost to extract 1 ounce of kryptonite might even be 100 times or more than that cost of gold. Also, let's not forget, kryptonite comes in a form of chunky meteorites, so more costs will be needed to be added to isolate the meteorite and to claim ownership of it in order to mine it in the first place. And that's not including all the poor souls that were lost in its impact. I mean, yeah, there are houses in the way of the kryptonite meteorite, so it kinda sounds like a skill issue to me, don't you think? But not only that, we have to talk about the Meteorite Laws. That's right, we have Meteorite Laws. Before you even think about scooping up that ounce of kryptonite and flipping it on eBay, you've got a buffet of legal nightmares waiting for you. Did it land on public land? Congrats, you possibly robbed the US government. Is it on private land? You better hope you own those mineral rights or you're basically mining someone else's wallet. And for those who don't know, mineral rights are just basically the living statement of just saying because you own the land you stand on does not mean you own the stuff that's under it or the stuff that possibly lands on it. And don't even think about skipping permits. Between the EPA, Homeland Security, and even Superman himself if he were to be around, you're looking at fines bigger than Lex Luthor's hair care bill. And up to this point, we haven't even got our shovels and pickaxes out yet. We're just standing here waiting to get access to the meteorite. If you even think about possibly breaking any of these federal laws, you might get up to 500k in federal penalties. Possibly more if you violated environmental laws. Plus, on top of that, you possibly have to spend about 10 to possibly 100k just to apply for excavation permits you'll probably get denied for anyways. With all of this already, the price of kryptonite has already greatly exceeded the price of 1 ounce of uranium, which is about $92.50 per ounce. As for the purity of kryptonite, that, as far as I can understand, won't have a great effect on its worth. Yes, there are different versions of kryptonite, but usually those variations don't involve combining other materials to change its properties. It's usually the manipulation of the radiation that comes from the green kryptonite, and other forms of kryptonite are naturally occurring from other planets. Even X-kryptonite, whether you're looking at the comics or the Superman and Lois show, is a natural occurring isotope. Therefore, the purity of kryptonite wouldn't be brought up when it comes to its worth, but something else would. Which brings me to the final factors of figuring out the worth. scarcity, demand, and market speculation. These are the more heavy-hitting subjects. First, scarcity. Kryptonite is a finite resource at first. If we were following the rules of Golden Age comics, Kryptonite would be scattered across the earth due to Kryptonite's demise, and very select people would have pieces of Kryptonite. But those rules are boring. We all know good and well if Kryptonite fell tonight, someone will find a way to replicate that thing artificially 10 years later, maybe even less given how advanced technology has become. As for demand, who would want Kryptonite if we have no Superman? It's the military. And the government. That's it. A new source of possible power? Have mercy. I'm sure a Cold War Part 2 would be on the horizon so fast Nikola Tesla would respawn himself and just start streaming the fight like a Netflix special. Given the incredible power potential that Kryptonite has, how would there not be an international debacle? The US and China would be throwing hands in the middle of the courtroom. As for commercial demand, theoretically it would be very low. The average consumer wouldn't have the tools needed to even transport and contain it if they want to avoid space cancer. Also, the only commercial product elements that can be compared to Kryptonite in terms of properties is uranium or maybe even polonium. But even then, that feels a tad bit extreme. However, military scientists and researchers? Sheesh, all that combined power in one material? Energy weapons couldn't come faster. Also, improved laser technology and armored weaponry. This thing would be traded like hotcakes everywhere to where I'm sure Kryptonite would be used to trade US hostages if they could. But here comes the hard part, market speculation. For us to get the worth, we need a market price. Now we could float around equity value and enterprise value to make sure it's easier, but unfortunately, Kryptonite isn't under a company, so let's be creative in trying to figure that out. If Lex Luthor even decided to sell Kryptonite due to him having the most supply, how much would he sell it for? Well, he needs a supply that's more than enticing to get the attention of the world governments and the general public. So just like when I mentioned uranium, I think he would have the equivalent amount of 50 tons worth of Kryptonite at his disposal, safely contained for future use. So currently, 50 tons of uranium would be worth about $1.6 million. So to compare that to 50 tons of Kryptonite, I tried to get a rough calculation to get the general cost of extraction and labor for Kryptonite. And if I am closely correct, it would cost about $17 billion to extract 50 tons of Kryptonite, which is about $510K if you wanted to just extract 1 ounce of it. With labor attached to it, that's around $857K. And that's just a rough estimation. It can be higher or lower given how complicated it is to extract from certain locations or what process they use to extract it. Therefore, to sell even 1 ounce of it, Lex Luthor would have to gain a profit surpassing $857K. That sounds like the typical student loan debt of a singular medical student. Therefore, if Luthor wanted to sell Kryptonite to cover the cost of extracting 1 ounce of Kryptonite, using about a 20% markup, which is used on average to figure out the worth of something, it would be worth about $1.02 million per ounce. To be more specifically, it would be $1,027,200, or using the troy ounce, it would be $91,420.80 per troy ounce. Take a look at the pricing compared to gold and uranium. Look at that insane difference just for simply having Kryptonite, or even just 1 ounce of it, and even just trying to get a handful of it. Look at me trying to keep the rich richer while I continue to suffer with my ramen noodles and orange juice. Now, what about commercial pricing though? That is a bit trickier because I'm going off of logic of Lex Luthor, and this monkey might sell it less for $10 with a complimentary hazmat suit and cancer test and provide transport like it's a Kickstarter because how much he dislikes Superman. Nonetheless, there you have it. The worth of Kryptonite if it were real, with all of the rinky-dink calculations that I made. Also, I want to make this clear, this is all just speculation. I am not an expert, so forgive me if I might be off by certain numbers. I actually want to show a possible calculation at the end so you can tell me if you actually like this depiction. Also, this is my first episode, so I'm completely open to feedback, and I'm looking forward to how you guys feel about this new series. And I might even actually leave a teaser at the end of this video about the next video I would like to do, so you tell me if you're interested in that as well. Other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to leave a comment. Don't forget to subscribe. We're trying to get to 1.4K by the end of the year. It's your boy Kadukun, and peace. Hope your bank has a black hole account, cause this ain't pocket change, bro.
Next time on Fictional Economics.